This is Susan Garlisch over at the DeKalb Public Library, and we're happy to have Tom Jaworski, independent college counselor from Quest College Consulting today, to do a virtual presentation about the college admission process, when to start. And take it away whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Susan. Appreciate it. And thank you for everybody for attending today or watching this recording as well. I greatly appreciate the time. It's nice to come back to the library to present, so thank you for that. As I mentioned, and then for those of you who are watching recordings too, I'll be happy to, at the end of my presentation, I have my email address in there. So if you wanted a copy of the slides, you're welcome to email me. I'm happy to send them out. There's a lot of links in this, like I said, in the presentation, that it might just be easier, right? If you get the presentation and you click the link to it and just went to it, obviously Google could help you find some things. But again, if you're watching this live as well too, feel free to email me. I put the in the chat feature, I put my email in there too. So yeah, so I understand sometimes I may be speaking fast as well. I'm trying to go with my best to go slow now, but once I get in the middle of it, I start rolling. I just notoriously am a fast speaker, so sorry about that. But okay, so here we go. I'm going to go and share my screen now with the presentation as we go. So here we go, and it says, so feel free also to put any question in the chat box as well. Susan will be monitoring that for me, so I'm happy to answer questions at any time, because again, I also understand that this is all second nature to me, but some of you, like Susan, could be going through this for the first time, and I just don't understand what you're trying to say, or explain that a little bit more. So, and I'll be happy to, or of course you have a question about it. I'm always happy to answer anything, or I'll say after as well. If you want to answer questions there, and I always joke and I'll say, I'll be here as long as Susan lets me be here, until she kicks me off this. So all good. Right, so the college process, when to start. So again, everybody always has that question. But I'll get really quick about my background. Like I was kind of alluding to, I used to be a high school history teacher. And so that's what I graduated with college with. And then as I was teaching, I started to earn my master's degree, which I did in school counseling. The school that I taught at was a smaller private high school, which was nice because they were able to open a position for myself. I had never even thought that they would, because there was no counseling positions available as I was going through the program, but they opened a position for myself in an honors program that they created, and it was, they wanted me to kind of be the personal counselor for the top, say, 10% of the class. And the purpose there was to kind of do more college exploration with that. We had a college counselor already, but kind of like to give them the more personalized, guided, kind of process through college from day one of high school. So I did that for 5 years, and I really enjoyed that aspect of going to work. But I always had that entrepreneurial spirit in the back of my mind. I probably watched one too many episodes of Shark Tank, and my wife probably watched one too many more than me, because she said, yeah, start your own business. It sounds great. Why don't you do what you're doing at school and do it privately? So after researching, and I decided that I would. So in 2011, my last year of teaching, I actually started my own business as an independent educational consultant. Just a fancy term to be a private college counselor. So I no longer work for any high school. I do not work or affiliate with any colleges. I work for the high school families to find colleges for them, recommend colleges for them that would best fit their personality profile and what they're looking for. Help with the application and the essay process, which is a beast in its own these days, and especially with, say, going test optional, that even means even more to get your personality out there. And of course, with the whole college aid process, I help with that as well too, which goes throughout the whole, with the whole from start to finish. And maybe some of these ideas you will see when we talk about that today. So we'll talk kind of from sophomore year, right? If you're a freshman or you're doing this as a freshman, I definitely would say, it's not too early to start, but definitely just, get good grades, get involved. Obviously, this year might be a little harder than usual, but do something, right? Colleges are also trying to look for what you're doing to be unique, and there are things you can do on your own. You can seek out opportunities, even though schools are not providing them. You can do those on your own. And that can really make you stand out for college. And it's just not for freshmen, right? Sophomores, juniors, they really want to know, what you've been doing over the past year to get involved, or have you just been sitting around saying, well, I can't do anything, so I'll just wait till things open up again, right? You kind of have to, college, you want those creativities, the creative students there. We'll talk a little bit about that. So we'll talk about the college search, the financial aid process, as I mentioned, kind of including scholarships, visiting colleges. We'll talk about what that means these days. And all of these, we'll be talking about what these means these days versus old days, versus what will be in the new normal. Standardized testing, things you can do in the summer. And then I'll kind of try to recap it all in kind of a timeline, because I know I might be a little bit here and pulling that point and pulling that point. I would kind of just put it in and said, okay, great, here we go. And not try to tell people if you do have a junior, like Susan said she did, they're like, oh my gosh, you're behind. You're not, right? Just maybe some things that I guess you can catch up on, but it wouldn't be that hard to catch up on that if you have a current junior, for instance. So no worries about that. And actually, I'll throw in a little bit some things from senior year as well too, maybe just so people have an idea of what, say, the beginning of senior year might look like. And then of course I'll wrap it up in the final 4 tips as well. So this is the point where I was trying to say it's the fun part of the process, right? Writing the application and the essays, that's not necessarily fun, right? Writing, trying to be creative, trying to create the dynamic essay and what's going to set you apart, right? And you're racking your brain, you're overthinking things. Right, the fall, which is when seniors would be applying, you know, that could be stressful, right? And then even say now, senior year, where you're still the application out and you're waiting to see if you've been admitted, or you're waiting for your financial aid to come through, and you know, will you be able to afford that school? And especially for the parents, like, how much am I going to have to pay for this, right? That could be the stressful part. So I'm not going to discount that, but this is a part where you have a lot of options and you could explore, right? The more options you explore, the different path you can go to get to the end. So I say it's a time-sensitive matter, and I put that with an asterisk, right? Because generally, right, people go to college after senior year, so you kind of make your decision by then. But it doesn't have to, right? There are a lot of different ways you can go to community college. That could be part of your path, and then you can kind of pick this up and go after community college, which could be for a semester, a year and a half, 2 years, right? You don't have to go all the way through for an associate. It could be 1 year and then you move on. It could be picking back up afterwards, and I've helped plenty of people do that who decided not to go or went for a year or two and restarted. So again, time-sensitive matters, sort of, right? But most people kind of generally, if you're thinking about it, do it through the high school. And so with the idea that, say, by the end of senior year, you should be progressing off into college, this could be done really fast, or it could be done really slow. You know, so again, the speed is kind of up to when you start it. And so when people ask, oh, am I too early, am I too late? I just say, well, it just depends. We just have to work either faster or slower, and that's it. So if you have a junior right now, it's definitely not a time to freak, even though I said that. You know, this is, we're talking about from sophomore year on. I always say it's never too early to start as well too. You know, that could be an asterisk, because I have had parents of an 8th grader view some of my presentations. They followed me around for a couple different libraries. So, you know, that's okay. It's always good to get to know these things, and things will change a lot. From an eyes, and my oldest is an 8-year-old as well, and things will change in the next, say, 8 to 9 years when he's applying to college. But it's always good to know about the process and what changes will be there. Not everything's going to change. Things will hopefully slowly change. So that might be a little early to start the process too, but definitely if you have a high school or even a middle school, just to understand what's going on. I've talked to middle school parents just so they know what they're in for, especially the financial aid part. But again, you know, this is the ideal timeline that I'm trying to show. But like I said, you know, everybody's different too, just like everybody's going to have a different path of how they're applying. So I'm just trying to give just generalizations. And again, you know, it gets personalized more, you know, to you guys and to your families too. So in general, it could be easier than this. It could be maybe a little bit more difficult, but this is just a good general to get people started and understanding the process too. But one thing I always try to say, that if you give a thorough search, you can open up much needed financial aid. So that's the idea, that if you take the time, and if you're even a junior, it's not saying that you have to be that 8-year-old looking for college search to find a financial aid. But if you do a search and you're not just saying, well, okay, where do you want to go? I want to go to a Big 10 school. Okay, well then you have what we got 14 schools in the Big Ten these days. But you're bound by those 14 schools and the financial aid they're going to offer for you too. So, you're not looking to uncover other things. You're just kind of bound by that. So if you're looking at different areas of the country, different school sizes, and so on and so forth, that you can uncover a lot if you kind of go through the process thoroughly as well. So talking about the college search, that's really the fun part, right? And just kind of taking a map of the United States. And when I first started working with people, I said, okay, where do you want to go to college? And of course, a lot of times they have an idea, like I said, maybe a Big Ten school. Or other times they say, I'm not sure. So I started asking questions like, do you like East Coast, West Coast, North, South? Which states do you want to go to? Oh, I want to go to Florida. I like Florida a lot, but I'm not a fan of Georgia or the Carolinas. Or I like the Carolinas, but I'm not too fan of Virginia. Or whatever. Okay, no problem. Texas, we don't want Texas too much, whatever. So that's kind of one of the things that I kind of do, kind of break down the United States itself that way. And I've had twice, actually. I've had people say, one person said, I want to go to a college where it will not snow. Okay, no problem. So you break it down that way. And then this year, I've actually had someone on the flip side say, I want to go somewhere where I could experience all 4 seasons. I just don't want, say, warm all the time. Okay, no problem. That's fair. So again, that kind of divides the country into different areas. And so you understand what types of schools they're looking for. So I say break down your college search and look for your geographic area where you want to go, and even with the parents, so have a conversation. And I think like everything here, you should have those conversations and have those early. So I think that's going to be one of my tips, even at the end, would be the more you talk about this, the more everybody's going to be on the same page. And I'll pull out from my master's degree from my counseling program. When you do talk to your children, they are listening to you, even if they're not looking at you, even if they do not respond or they give you the grunt of, I know, Mom. All right, they are listening to you. So if you keep just talking to them, they are maybe understanding where you're coming from, what you're trying to say. So we're looking at the geographic area that we're going to go to, maybe then the school size. So if you say, great, like I said, parents, that's my point. How far do you want to go? Parents are comfortable with car rides. It's 6 hours away. Generally, you get between 2 and 6 hours away. Is it a car ride like that? Okay, great. Well, within those 2 to 6 hours, say from here all the way to the Cleveland area, Des Moines area. Like, okay, what size school do you want? What's the locale of it? Do you want it in a city, like an urban university, like the Paul Loyola, UIC? Do you want something like that, or do you want more of a suburban feeling, like say Northwestern, Elmhurst College? Do you want, ideas like that? Even Northern Illinois. Do you want ideas like that where you can get into the big cities pretty fast if you wanted to, but you're out on your own a little bit too, and kind of have your own little lifestyle up there?
Tom?
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. We got a question. Is it okay to read that to you?
Great, thank you.
Is there any truth to southern states having generally lower tuition costs than northern ones? Is that a factor?
You know what? Without, say, a 100% certainty, but generally, yes. And I think that's one fact. It's a great question. So I'll kind of answer that as we talk about this map here. As you're looking to go to school, think about the cost of living in different areas of the country. So I don't think I have this slide on this presentation, but yes, you generally go to the New England area, the East Coast, you're going to generally pay more for those schools just because the cost of living is a lot more expensive. And yes, in the South, they generally are much cheaper. Looking at a map, like University of Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, they generally tend to be a little cheaper. And even if you go to Texas and UT Austin, Texas A&M, they're a little cheaper, but maybe not as much as Alabama. But yes, where you're going in the country, the cost will be different. If you go back up to California, you're going to go pretty expensive for if you want the UC schools, which is the University of California system. So yes, generally that's one of the aspects that will go back into a thorough search to uncover those schools. So like I said, and obviously the South, you have maybe a different type of lifestyle down there. Not for better, not for worse, but right, Tuscaloosa, Alabama is a little bit different than DeKalb or the Chicagoland area. But if that's this type of lifestyle you enjoy, absolutely, that could be a great bargain school for you, especially because University of Alabama, off the top of my head, does offer very generous scholarships as well for academics that are pretty easy to get, meaning it's based off your ACT, SAT score. So that is a great question. So yes, that's part of the service here too. Parts of the country could be cheaper than other parts of the country. So great, thanks for that great question. Keep asking. So that goes into locale, what kind of school you want to find, the financial fit for you. So there's a lot of factors that go into this college search, and that could be just a lot of fun as you Google, as you search for different things. So thank you for that. All right, so once you kind of narrow down, like I said, I kind of take that geographic first. Now you have an idea of searching academically. So now where am I going to fit? And you can even say I fit financially by looking at schools in different areas and what they may cost off the sticker price of the college. But then you want to look into the academics. And I always say you want to choose a college for success. And I just thrown out the Ivy Leagues just for instance, and Ivy Leagues are just 8 schools that are tied together through an athletic conference. So that's the only technically the only reason they're Ivy League schools. It's an athletic conference, but generally people assume, and the rankings show that they're some of the best schools in the nation, but they're also some of the most competitive schools, not just even from the college admission standpoint, which they're all, say, under 10% for admission. They're all very difficult to get into. But even if you were able to get into the school, is that the type of school that your son or daughter is going to thrive at, right? Is the competitive aspect, are they going to thrive in that? Or is it going to be too stressful and they're not going to be as successful as they could be if they even went to maybe a little bit of a lower academic tier, which I guess everybody is kind of lower than Ivy League academically, but, would they be a little bit more comfortable at a type of school like that? Or again, that's where you can get more financial aid as well, too. Say your son or daughter does knock it out of the park with a standardized exam. There are a lot of other factors that go into admissions for the Ivy League. But say they were able to get in because they did really well on their ACT, SAT score. Is that the type of environment they're going to be successful in? Or if you go to other types of schools, those are the schools you might be able to actually use that test score to get, as I mentioned, University of Alabama, a lot of money off. I'm sure if you can get a nice score to get into the Ivy League, that can almost qualify for free tuition. You pay the other fees and room and board at University of Alabama, but you're knocking, say, $20,000, $25,000 just for the tuition off. So it's a nice generous scholarship right there. So maybe that would be better financial fit for the family, well, even a better social fit because again, maybe that pressure is not there as much. I think that goes with Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book, and in a chapter in his book, he did talk about a girl from Maryland who was going to go to University of Maryland. She was very happy with that choice, but she decided to apply to Brown because she did really well on her standardized exam. And then in the end, she was admitted to Brown, and then she felt the pressure to go there because she was admitted. So she was, well, I got in, I should go there. And then she went there. She realized she wasn't at the top of the class at Brown. She was more towards probably the bottom, which is still fantastic, right? But she said she really didn't achieve as much as she felt she could have at the University of Maryland if she would have went there, because she would have probably thrived a little better in that environment than the stressful feeling to keep up and the rigors of the courses. And she said she probably would have got a better education at the University of Maryland because she would have been able to learn for the sake of learning instead of just trying to keep up with everything going on. So that's something to consider as well too. That kind of that social emotional issue where you guys are going to be more successful in. Obviously, when you look up a lot of the colleges, they're going to give you the median 50% of students admitted. So look that up for the academics and take those with a grain of salt, right? Because 25% have gotten in higher than that median ACT, SAT, GPA. 25% below that median has also got in. Now, the issue with so many colleges going test optional, that those are just students who submitted test scores. But it's just a good factor to know where you might fall in. Is that school kind of possible for you? So that just gives an idea right there. Or there's nothing wrong with adding schools to your list by saying you have your reach schools, right? The schools in which you'll be harder for you to get into match schools where you're right there, right in the middle or top end. of the median 50% of the ACT, SAT, and then maybe even your safety schools, right? The ones that you're going to be above that median 50% with your ACT, SAT score. So the idea right there, that could be your safety school. So just keep those with a grain of salt, but it's just a good idea of where you might fit in to keep those numbers in mind. Also, you want to prepare academically. You want to prepare with rigorous coursework. So most colleges will say take the hardest courses you can succeed in. Obviously, if you're looking for a more competitive environment, they want you to be very successful in the hardest courses. So a perfect example is when I was a counselor at the school and I took a group of sophomores to the University of Notre Dame, and a student asked a question, said, is it better to get an A in an honors class or a B in an AP class? And the admissions officer quickly said, you get an A in an AP class if you want to go to the University of Notre Dame. It's like, okay then. And the looks in the students' faces, I'm like, well, that's the type of environment, again, you're going to be successful and you're going to thrive there. You're going to rise to that challenge. And that's okay if you don't want to try about that, right? It's not the fit for you. So you move on to another school. There are plenty out there for you. Or is it, yes, that's exactly what I want. I want to be challenged like that and I will be successful. So rigorous coursework, so it doesn't mean always taking AP classes. It could be honor class, it could be dual credit classes, ideas like that. If you can take the AP, there's probably going to be a little bit more of emphasis on AP scores. Now that is a cross on the bottom. SAT 2s, as they used to be called, but the SAT subject exams have now been eliminated. That the College Board will no longer be offering those. So the College Board also offers AP classes and exams. So if you want to show how well you've done in certain subjects, and on top of your other standardized test score, your SAT score, you're going to have to submit your AP scores, which should be about 4s and 5s, to be honest with you. So, so there'll be maybe a little bit more emphasis on AP class and AP exams. So, and like I said, in college, you also look at your extracurricular or your activities, things you do outside the typical 7:30 to 2:30, 3 o'clock school day as well. As you're looking for schools as well, too, always think about that social fit as well. Do you want a liberal arts college, which mostly tends to be smaller schools, a couple thousand? You could definitely have the liberal arts colleges like, I say Marquette and Creighton and Butler, which has the middle range up to about 10,000. So again, you have about those ideas. After that, you go into larger schools like your research university, your comprehensive colleges. Kind of, they're well known for the research, or they're just well known. They do a little bit of everything. For instance, University of Iowa, you could major in just about anything at University of Iowa, for instance. But also, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a conservatory type of school, which means, right, you get to do your finer performing arts. About at least 2/3 to 3/4 of your subjects that you take will just be in your fine art, and then you take some other courses along the way too. But you're mainly focusing on your fine art. Is it theater, music, and so on and so forth? So that's more of a conservatory style, and you could probably change get a Bachelor of Fine Arts, a BFA from there. So is that what you're looking to do, to have that type of major? On the flip side, a technical or highly focused school is almost a conservatory for STEM. You're looking at Rolls-Holman Institute in Terre Haute, Indiana, right? They say you can major in math, science, and engineering, and that's all. But they do it really well. Over the last 20 years, they've been the #1 undergraduate university for STEM-based majors. So again, that's kind of like a conservatory for STEM. So maybe that's going to be the environment you want, right? That you're to kind of just joke around a little bit too. That do you go to that campus and you say, "Wow, I really want to do engineering," but there's a bunch of Sheldon Coopers walking around here, and you say that might not be for me, or you may be like, "Wow, they're all Sheldon Coopers around here, just like me. This is where I want to go," right? There's that social fit. Are you going to fit in that type of environment? There's other types of schools like religious type university. Do you want that like a Wheaton College? You're looking at maybe even Pepperdine, right? Do you have that religious aspect? Baylor universities for that. So do you have to get a little bit more involved in religion than say University of Notre Dame or Loyola DePaul, where you take some theology courses, but there's no like chapel where you have to go once a week, listen to guest speakers and so on and so forth. So there's none of, you just have to take like some courses. Single-sex schools, right? There's 3 all-male colleges left in the United States. The closest being Wabash College in Crawfordsville, Indiana. There's still a good handful of single-sex female schools in the country.
Excuse me, Tom.
Yes, please.
Okay, I think we're going to go back here. We had a question. How about mechanical engineering, technical schools? And then the follow-up was specifically ones that offer strong internship partnerships with major companies.
Sure. I think, yeah, if you're looking for specific schools like that, mechanical and engineering definitely is going to be an engineering that, most colleges are going to offer that. It's kind of one of those general civil, electrical engineering, kind of your base engineering. But yeah, if you're looking for those smaller schools, I mean, there's like, kind of the tech behind it too, like, Illinois Tech or Illinois Institute of Technology, Rose Holman, Michigan Tech. A lot of those tech, name it, the tech in it behind it will be pretty good for those types of schools. And they're definitely around. There's another one up in Michigan. Geez, it used to be old General Motors had a school up there, and it got changed. I can't think of the name right now. But yeah, I mean, there definitely are those smaller schools. Colorado School of Mines, for instance, if you're looking for engineering, stuff like that. There's one in Rolla, Missouri, which is Missouri. Oh, geez, that one's off the top of my head. It put me on a spot and I forget it too. But they're definitely out there, those 5,000 size schools, even less than that have those. And again, they're just focused in the engineering, so they will come for you for internships and stuff like that. Or you definitely go for a mechanical engineering to a larger university, and they'll come calling for you as well for internships. You definitely should be able to get them if you wanted them as well, and competitive for that too. So great question there too. But those are the things, right, you should be looking for as well in your college search as you go through this as well. So looking at those things too, looking further in depth at internships and those social aspects, but what can you do as well? So great question. So thank you for that. All right, so I'll keep going here. So I guess the last thing also you're looking at, so I guess I can even put on there, also consider those internship factors, what you're looking for. If you're looking to participate in fine arts, but you no longer want to be a fine arts major, you don't have to do that as well. Or do you want the Greek life? Do you not want the Greek life? Do you want to participate in athletics? Mostly Division III, right? Because most of the athletics are Division III, smaller schools there, or different types of clubs that you're looking for. So, those are the aspects you should also be looking at too. So I think I'll probably add internships to this slide. That's a great question they had there. All right, so again, as you're looking at your major, and so I have my internships here too. I got ahead of myself and forgot I had that. But yeah, you want to look at your major career, look at those aspects too. Like, what are your interests? What are your outside interests? Did you have any internships in high school, which is not always the easiest to get. I understand that, but maybe you could do some job shadowing or just interviewing people in a field. Like if you want to be an attorney, you want to be a politician, for instance. A good question would be just to see if you can get just a shadow experience and maybe an internship with a politician. If it's campaign season, always some kind of a campaign going on. So just kind of talk to people. Just go in and ask a doctor, hey, can I have a half an hour interview with you just to talk about what actually a doctor does and to learn more about your path that you took to get here, and then maybe things that you learned along the way. I should have done it this way, right? Just to ask those people. So ask the professionals around you, ask family members. So those are things you could be doing just to make sure that those are the fields that you want to go into. All right, so going to the financial aid process. Honestly, 85 to 90% of all of your scholarships will come from the colleges themselves. Not to say you shouldn't look for those 10 to 15% that are outside the colleges, but again, that thorough search, looking at parts of the country for cheaper universities, or looking at schools that might offer more academic scholarships, and not just looking at the sticker price. And don't let that actually be a determining factor right off the bat and scare you. Say, wow, that school is too expensive. Do some exploration of the school and a little bit of research, and then find out what you might pay. And I'll get to that as well in a slide, what I mean by that, before you discount a school. So again, in the end, you can say, yes, it's too expensive, but don't look at the price off the bat and say, nope, too expensive, $65,000, we're not going to go to school there. Just take a few minutes before you say no to that school too. So that's how you can discover those cheaper universities. So, but I would say you can always keep looking, for scholarships throughout the whole process. There are websites like scholarship.com, FastWeb, CapX, which are good scholarship websites as well too. And you just kind of get in the system, get in the database, and let the algorithms kind of work for you as well too. Look for your local scholarships around the area, Rotary clubs, Chamber of Commerce's, women's clubs, garden clubs, right? Kind of those local scholarships will be your best opportunity to win. Even through your high school, booster clubs may have scholarships, for instance, and just other scholarships in former teachers' names and stuff like that too. Those are probably the best ones to win, right? Only because they have less applicants, and so the percent is just higher when you go there. But also look through the colleges themselves and don't cross them off real quick. As you go through this financial aid process, you're going to see that cost of attendance, as kind of mentioned, that sticker price there too, which is going to be tuition, which is what you're going to pay to be a full-time student. Room and board you're going to add on to that too, which is the average of what you're going to pay for the average dorm room and average meal plan. And then there's the estimated cost of books and just kind of spending money and fees and transportation, so on and so forth. But so that's what it's going to be for now, because it's changing a little bit. So Susan's a perfect example there. She's got a junior and a sophomore. The FAFSA is going to change, and also how colleges report their cost of attendance will be changing too, between her son and her daughter, the junior and the sophomore year, because part of the stimulus package that was approved in late December, early January under President Trump still, they also put in there that the FAFSA is going to change. And so what I talk about right now will still be for most part true, with a couple exceptions. So I'll go through this. So when you do the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, this is your gateway to college financial aid, and it's not your what you actually will receive. It's your application for financial aid that you're sending to the different colleges, and then they'll determine, based on their cost of attendance and the information you put down, what you should pay for the school, and then start discounting from there too. Perhaps merit scholarships or financial aid scholarships, which are called grants, based on your how much money you make or don't make, for instance. But this goes live actually of October 1st of your senior year. So Susan, October 1st of this year, you can start completing the FAFSA for your son, which will be attending in fall of 2022. So in your fall of your senior year, you're doing it for the next year, and you're going to use your tax year, your prior year is called PPY, your tax year of 2020. So whatever Susan completes on her taxes by April 15th, her financial aid is going to be based upon everything that happened last year. For the most part, it's adjusted gross income, but I have a whole long presentation on kind of figuring that aspect as well too. But everything that, because your first year of financial aid for college has almost been determined for you already, which is something that takes place during your second semester sophomore year, first semester junior year. So if you currently have a junior, actually your second semester junior year out too. So now if you have a sophomore, you're in your PPY year too. So again, for her daughter it is. But like I said, the expected family contribution is what currently Susan's junior is going to receive, or your EFC. So she's going to go through about 108 questions, which sounds worse than what it is. It's really not as bad. But she's going to get an EFC, expected family contribution. So the government is going to say what we feel you could pay for 1 year of college, and then that number gets sent off to the colleges. But that's going to change for sophomore years and below. The EFC is going to be gone. It's going to be replaced, and a little bit of a different formula, not too much, but really it's going to be down to about 36-ish questions. And then it's going to ask, some pretty basic questions, and then you're going to get a student aid index, which is then those numbers will be sent off to the different colleges to determine what they want to do. So there'll be some changes involved as well too, and a little bit about how things are reported as well too. But for the most part, it's going to be the same. The same bones are still going to be there, but it's kind of on the outskirts, a little bit different as well too. So, but yeah, when you're doing the FAFSA, that's just kind of a gateway, just the start of the process. So you fill it out in the fall, like sometime in October, and then you actually wait until like the middle of March. Like, so students are still not receiving their financial aid award letters yet from colleges. They're still being determined too, as colleges want to figure out how much money to give out to people as well, what their costs are going to be. So it's a long waiting process as well that goes into that.
We have a comment.
Awesome, thank you. I'll take a drink while I listen to it. Go ahead.
It says, wow, so a lot of people may have a better chance for financial aid in 2022 based on COVID job losses, lower income, etc., or 2023.
You know what? On paper, yeah, so I guess I'd say if you lost your job last year due to COVID or still haven't found it into this year, so yes, that can be true on paper. This year, there's a lot of expectation that these financial aid awards are going to be sent out, and there will be a lot of appeals in the process because people will say, yeah, say like last year, like when I did my taxes, which were due by what was it, July 15th last year? I did mine early before even the pandemic went, so I was like, oh wow, right, all this was changed. But you said, well, that was based on 2019, 2020, I lost my job, and so on paper, or it's showing that I had 10 months of salary, and then after that, I lost my job. I still haven't worked since then. So they're kind of expecting a lot more appeals to go through by saying, okay, that's what you said I can afford. I get it. I don't have a job right now. What can be done? And then they'll kind of walk you through that process. So yes, I think this year, next year, moving for the next couple years, there will be that idea of will colleges be able to work with you. And that's also another way to get more financial aid sometimes is you apply to similar type schools to see if you can receive more aid, right? If you get some of these liberal arts colleges that are $75,000, but then you apply to some of these Big Ten universities that are, $45,000, $50,000, it's harder to compare those. But if you apply to Butler, Marquette, and DePaul, and St. Louis University, and Creighton, they're all very similar type schools. So you can say, one's giving me $30,000, you're giving me $35,000. I want to go to your school, but you're not giving me the most. Can you give me that? And it's kind of talking to their financial aid and asking them what they can do and all that. So, so now-ish senior year is when that financial aid kind of reassessments of funds is the nice term to call it, kind of starts. So great comment then too. So yes. So some ways to determine some of these aspects here would be what college may cost to you. Is the first one actually just going to jump down actually to the net price calculator. The net price calculator is something that has been every college's website. So if you best way to do it is Google Northern Illinois net price calculator, and it'll take you to the page, nice and simple. But that net price calculator is one way of now taking that sticker price, entering in financial information for yourself based upon your adjusted gross income and maybe liquid assets such as checking accounts, saving accounts, any investments that are not tied to retirement accounts. And then that's in a nutshell pretty quick what it is. But there's other aspects that go into it, like academics for your son or daughter. And then based on that information, what will the net price of that school be for you specifically? Because again, I'm different than Susan, that I'm different than you guys with what we have in a bank and how much money we make and all that. So even maybe academically we can compare our children, but financially, right, we're all different as well there too. So that would be a better way to get a handle on what a college may cost you. So that's that net price calculator that I have kind of towards the bottom there too. And that's what it say, okay, the school says $75,000 cost of attendance sticker price. Do I pay $75,000? Am I paying $25,000? Am I paying $50,000? So that kind of helps you through that shopping process when you're going in to buy a car or buy a house. You have an idea of what that house may be. So that's why you're going shopping for that house instead of saying, look at this beautiful house. It's got a swimming pool. And in the end, you find the price. I can't afford this. So you kind of understand what you might might be in for. So when you're looking for schools, so go to those schools in the South, for instance, going back there and looking at the cost of attendance and doing that price calculator and seeing in the end, will that still come out cheaper, even though sticker price looks cheaper, but in the end, will that still be based upon, say, the Big Ten schools, for instance? If you want some good general information, as I mentioned, median ACT, SAT score, just sticker price. The College Scorecard is a great website. It's another Department of Education website that you could just look up a bunch of statistics that colleges have to report to the government to get you some good, quick research. On there, they have a link for the Fafsa Forecaster, which I look into this link, and I know, unfortunately, I believe this is probably the wrong link, and I apologize for that. If you just Google Fafsa Forecaster, you should be able to get to the correct link from the Department of Education. Or if you went to the College Scorecard, you scroll down on your front screen and it'll say take you to the Fafsa Forecaster. And what that Fafsa Forecaster is you can find out, now again, this could be only for juniors because things are going to change a little bit. Or even if you do have a sophomore or younger, it's good to play around with it just to see what your EFC might be. So just as an estimate, you just put in general information or as specific as you want to, and then it gets erased once you click off of it, but gives you an idea of what colleges may be thinking that you, based on the information you put in, that you might have to pay for school. So is it going to be $35,000 or is it going to be $65,000? And go, geez, like we really need to find those schools that are cheaper sticker price because we might not get any financial aid, or we really need to look at those academic scholarship schools where that my son or daughter might be in the top 25% to get the financial aid for those schools as well too. So all these links are very helpful. The College Board has their own net price calculator that a lot of colleges may just refer you to a third-party one, which is very credible as well too with your information. So don't be scared if they send you to another site and not just their school. But in the end, they'll tell you maybe what you're going to pay. So some good estimations here where I say go through these links first before you cross schools off right away. And you still may cross them off, and it makes a ton of sense. But at least you know this within the, say the first 10, 15 minutes of your son or daughter saying, hey, wow, Northwestern really came to school, or I did a virtual program with them today. It sounds like a great school, and then you could do it in that price calculator and either say, you know what, purple's not really a color. I don't think that it would look great in you. Or think, yeah, you know what, Northwestern's great. It's pretty close to home. I think we should look at that school more. So ideas like that. So sometimes you might want to visit colleges as well. Go through that. So again, what can you do, right? But one of the reasons I'll go before I go how you do that these days, right? Because everything's different, is why you might want to do this. Besides the fact that you want to get to know the college and learn a little bit more about that, some colleges, and not all, so take this term like with most things in college with a grain of salt. Not every college, not a Northwestern, University of Notre Dame, an Ivy League, they don't have to track demonstrated interest, but some schools do track demonstrated interest. And that is exhibiting to a college you're interested, right? That you kind of want to date them. That's the kind of idea. So you kind of let them know, hey, I'm visiting your campus, or I'm doing programming online, for instance. So I'm kind of interested in your school, and they're going to kind of come back to you then too. It's like, great, you visited our campus, you did online information sessions here too. What more can we do for you too, right? You've shown them you're interested, and they're kind of coming back and saying, yes, we're interested in you too. Let's have a conversation going back and forth. And so demonstrated interest is good because sometimes this is where you can get additional financial aid, because colleges in the end are a business, and they're in the business of selling seats to their university, right? And that is a factor in admissions is, will this student accept our offer of admission if we give it? That's why they want to accept students. And so they think they have a good chance of accepting you, and you might be even saying the bottom 25% of the median GPA or ACT, SAT, but we really think the student's going to come here. We could accept them, and then they could accept their offer, and we've sold that seat now. We don't have to worry about making our budget, for instance, too. So that demonstrated interest sometimes goes in that if you really have shown a lot of interest, they may say, well, this student we really think is going to come here, so I think we should accept them. Or if we waitlist them too, for instance, but you showed a lot of demonstrated interest, everything. If we needed to fall back, I think Johnny will be the person to come to the school, because Johnny really wants to come here, I think. And I think we could probably still get Johnny if we give him offer admission May 3rd, May 4th, for instance. In person, what this means, demonstrated interest, is kind of a day's car ride, say around 4 to 6 hours. But nowadays, virtually is a great way you can show your interest as well too. In college, we'll be taking that in consideration. Have you done any virtual program with us? We've created this in the past year. Why haven't you interacted with us this way? Now, like I said, not every college is going to have this factor. I'll be honest with you right there. But you could ask them, right? If you have communicated with the college, just say, do you track demonstrated interest? And if they say yes, stay on top of them a little bit.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'll just read the whole thing out, although I think you answered part of it. So a visit in person gives you a leg up on admissions, really? Do some colleges offer any lodging for low cost or prospective students, or is it just pay your own way for visits?
Yes to all of those. Okay, I'll explain that. So yes, so some colleges want you to come visit. Now they also understand, like I said, it's kind of a day's car ride, that if it's difficult, right, you got to get on a plane and fly to California. You might not be able to do that. But back how it used to be, right, they would kind of like you to come down if you have the opportunity to. Now, yes, sometimes too, if you called ahead and you did sometimes they'd have discounts at hotels in the area that might work a deal with, right? Because there's hotels around colleges, even in the middle of nowhere, because they get their money off that college. So they might be able to offer you discount rates and stuff like that too. Sometimes we ask them, if you're sometimes even of financial need, right? You really need financial aid, and you can't afford that too. Sometimes there are fly-in programs for students that if you meet the threshold for meeting need, that they could even reimburse you, or they could fly you in, or they could put you on an Amtrak and get you a ticket and have you come down, for instance, or put you up in a hotel. So sometimes you just contact the school. If we're going to do an in-person visit, you could ask them those questions. And I think that's one thing, just in general, a lot of people don't realize with colleges is that colleges will give you an honest answer if you just call and ask them. So if you call and ask the financial aid office, how this is too expensive, I won't be able to afford this, is there something you can do? Well, what can I do? They'll talk you through the process and try to help you, because they want you to come to school. They actually do want you to come to school. So if you call the admissions office as well, saying, you know what, we'd like to come visit, but I don't think we can afford this. Is there anything we can do? They might say, great, well, here's a form to fill out, some information. Let's see what we can do to help you out here too. So if you just call the admissions office and explain the situation, they might be able to help you as well too. Like I said, this is not always a factor in admissions. So if you call and ask, do you track demonstrated interest? You should probably tell you, to be honest with you too. So keep that one in mind too. That could be the first question to ask. I'll go back to the other slide as well, because I think this one will go along with that question as well. So even if you can't visit now these days in person, right? Because it's always good to get the feel of a campus, the vibe, the smells of campus, right? A little bit of everything of a campus. It's always good to get that in person, but you can still do a lot of things virtually. There are virtual tours that are running 24/7. If you click the links and you just go, that are on the websites. There are information sessions, just like this program will be kind of on demand, that you can view as well. There can be live information sessions, just kind of like you're doing here, where you can interact and ask questions with me. So there's a lot of things these days with COVID going on that colleges have added to their websites too. So there's a lot of things virtually you can do to get to know the school, which would also be considered for demonstrated interest, for instance. So keep that one in mind. So these days, that demonstrated interest is not just actually visiting on campus. It could be reaching out to them virtually by saying, you had the means to do it virtually. Why didn't you do that? We've never seen you before. And all of a sudden, in your daughter's essay, she's writing, this is my #1 school I've always wanted to go through. And they're like, yeah, you're not in our computer database. We've never seen you before. So if this was your top school, you kind of would have done something to show us that. But it's virtually. In person, right? Some colleges are offering business as usual information sessions and campus tours. Some are just offering campus tours, like the University of Iowa is just offering tours. You're only outside, you're not walking into some buildings, so they have restrictions there. I know off the top of my head, University of Wisconsin and Indiana University are not giving tours at all, but they have self-guided tour options. They have driving tour options, where they have information online. So there's a lot of different factors that go along with it too. So you can always just call, you can look on the website, but you can also call the school and say, hey, we're really interested. What can we do if you wanted to come during spring break to visit your campus? What are our options? And they can tell you where it is. And you can have that conversation as well. So again, so there's virtual, there's in-person, there's a whole bunch of things you can do as well. So I think that's a great way right now to demonstrate interest. If you're not comfortable going and visit, or you don't have the means, or you just don't want to, right? Let's be honest there too. So I'll jump back a slider real quick. Like, when should you visit a campus? People always ask that question. Well, when should we do it? So, when things get back, if you can visit campuses during spring break or summer breaks, it's always great. Obviously, this past year and even moving forward the next 6 months, who knows what things will be. It's always great to do that. So in an ideal setting, right, if you did one between freshman and sophomore, based on a family vacation, wherever you're going, you went to Florida, there's a ton of colleges in Florida, just pick one school and just take an idea of what it all is a college visit. You don't even have to want to go to school there, but that's probably a great test school to do that, because you get to learn what a college visit is without having any bias or any, like, you want to like that school because you've seen them in the NCAA tournament, for instance, and you just want Florida Gulf Coast to know more about, to want to go there just because of that. If you're a sophomore, attend some college fairs, and there's some virtual fairs going on now too. At some point sophomore year, but sophomore to junior year, if you were to visit a campus that you might be interested in, so it's a good idea, but you might not know what schools you want at that point, that's okay. But by junior year, right, if you're having a conversation with your son or daughter, you might have some ideas of what schools they want to go to. And like I said, they may not be the most concrete issues. It just may be like, I want to go to Mizzou because I know people who went there. That's okay. That's good to explore that aspect, just because they've heard of that school or they know people who go there at that point. It doesn't hurt to explore those options and say, okay, well, this is what Mizzou is. Is this what you would want for college? And of course, sometimes it might be, I don't know. But then you go visit other colleges at that point to try to figure it out. Or you do virtual information sessions to learn about the different schools and the application process. And do you get the feel, or the way they're talking, is this not what you want, or stuff like that too. So even if you do it virtually, you can get some of that idea as well too. And then even senior year, maybe, this year, are you going to be able to do some in the beginning of senior year? All right, knocking on wood, I hope things will be, a lot different in the fall, right? We seem to be trending the right way. But you're going to be able to do that, or are you going to wait to spring break next year? A lot of people say, well, we'll wait till we get into schools and we'll go visit. So, 6 of one, half a dozen the other one. I usually try to say you do it before you apply. May not be possible this past year. Of course, these current seniors, it's not necessarily possible. But I like the idea that, you can't visit every campus either, and I understand as well. Cost comes into a factor, but, you kind of want to know what you get into first before you apply. And then you take your time and your $75 application fees, and then you're like, you might not want to go to school there. If you think you have a good idea, you want to go to school there, I think then if you can visit, if it's possible, that's always recommended. But like I said, it's not always recommended. It's not always ideal, right? This is perfect case scenario, which perfect case got thrown out about this time last year anyway. So, all right, so moving forward from that slide. All right, so moving along here too, with the information, standardized exams. Juniors will get a free SAT exam. SAT exam in this April, and the state of Illinois came out and said we don't see why students wouldn't be able to take that free SAT in April this year. So you at least have one score there too. Ideal, could you get them a little bit earlier? You could always do it earlier, in the fall of junior year or early winter, like a January or February exam, date, a December exam date. But again, not always possible, but you just want to make sure that you don't limit yourself, because if you wait till April of junior year, the next time you can take it will be in June of your junior year, and then you wait until August of your senior year. So again, then you're starting to apply to schools, and you kind of have an idea where you're at, and you can kind of cram more, but is it marching band season, football season next fall, right? We're going to go back, everything hopefully back in order how it used to be. And so you might not be able to take a Saturday to take the exam, for instance. So if you can start a little bit earlier, you get a good idea of a baseline. It could save a little bit of stress at that point. Or if you know you need some help and you need to contact Susan and say, Susan, what resources do the libraries offer for us? Is it online? Is it in-person resources? What can you help me with too, right? You give yourself just a little bit more flexibility to find some times to make adjustments or just to relax and I'm good. I really knocked it out of the park. I'm really happy with my score. All right, great. And that's fantastic. So like I said, do you take the ACT or the SAT or both? You know, the answer could be yes to all those, right? You're going to get the free SAT exam. Some people like to take the ACT to check which one they may do better on. And some people might say, then I want to take a second exam of one that I really felt more comfortable doing. Or some people just stay with ACT, SAT and do multiple of those exams. Or some people just get one exam. So it's kind of up to you and your strategies of where you want to work with about how many times you want to take it, which exam you want to take it. You just take it once, right? It's all up to kind of personal preference and strategy that you guys decide upon. Like I said, the SAT subject exams have been canceled. So everything in my presentation, I just kind of put the strike through. It no longer applies, but that's what the AP exams are now going to, I threw those in there now. Those are probably going to take out a little bit more of if you submit those, and you don't have to submit those to colleges, but if you do, it could be a good way of trying to set you apart by saying, I have 4s and 5s in my exams, and this is how well I've been doing in those classes and on those exams as well. So consider me for admission to school, for instance.
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
Do the colleges know how many times you have taken ACT, SAT?
If you report those to the school. Now, some schools, they want you. So back and forth. So some schools are just what's called self-report schools, which means you will just tell them on your application what you received in each area of the ACT or SAT and what your composite score is going to be and when you took it. And then if they accept you, then they're going to say, okay, you self-report those. Thank you. Now just prove to us now you want to go to our school and accept their offer. Just prove to us you got that score. We just want to verify it. No problem. Other times, some schools want you to send your scores to them too, officially as you do it. But usually, you report the ones that you want to report. Some schools say they want all your scores, but there's really no way for them to verify all your scores in too. Some schools do also super score, which means, for instance, the ACT is 4 different subsections. So they'll take your highest math, your highest science, and your highest reading, your highest English score. So if you send them 3 different scores, they can recalculate all those, and you can get a 28 instead of a 26, which is your highest composite. But because you had higher scores in each of the different exams, they can take the highest one of each. So you may have to submit 3 different scores of them too. So that's part of the strategy of, do you submit 3 scores? And I think in the end, it really doesn't matter. Colleges won't necessarily penalize you for taking the exam 6 or 7 times, but chances are you probably won't show them. If you take them that many times, you're going to get a lot of scores that look very similar, so you probably just will report what you want to report to them, if that makes sense. Great question again on that. Okay, so like I said before, I threw a lot of information at you, so I was just kind of going to take you through a timeline real quick and then finish up with my final 4 tips. So kind of put everything I had in order. So an ideal timeline. But again, if you are past this timeline already, right, you have a junior right now, not a sophomore, or right, it's spring of sophomore year, not fall of sophomore, maybe you just kind of, pick up the slack a little bit. And I don't think you have to, work that much faster, for instance. But ideally, in the fall of sophomore year, right, freshman year, worry about your grades. Get some really good grades. Get involved, challenge yourself a little bit, get involved in athletics, get involved in activities, get involved in volunteering outside of school, get involved in something that you want to get involved in. And like I said, if you're just doing your own thing, you want to be an engineer, it's tinkering and building things on your own, it's building your own computers, it's starting to create your own app, learning how to do website, learning how to code on your own. Those are things you can do as well too. So it doesn't have to be, always have to be something that you have to show proof, right? It could be like, well, I started freshman year learning how to code, and I learned to do this, I did that, I built my own app, I built my own website. Great. Those are things you should be doing as well too. So it doesn't have to be something that you can prove. Just do something that you want to get involved in and learn what your interests are. But sophomore year, right, if you start creating a college list, start talking about the colleges that you might be interested in. So you eventually do like a college visit, a virtual program, an information session. You go to a college fair. You kind of just get the conversation going with college is what I'm trying to say. Get the idea in your head that what schools might be about. January year, that's when your prior year starts, right? Your second semester sophomore year into your first semester junior year. So you're on the clock for financial aid. So check your calculators, right? Check your investments. Family, same thing too. If you're up for a bonus that year, sounds crazy. Can you go to your boss and say, any chance I can get just December 31st because my son is a sophomore, it's going to hurt me in my financial aid for next year, so maybe it won't hurt me as much that year. So on and so forth, things like that. Start looking into maybe summer programs. This year it's very different, right? We don't exactly know what's going to happen for summer. So if you're looking for your summer plans, like summer college programming, and some programs that really have dates in January, February that are deadlines. Are you looking for spring break college visits? Are you going to sit down and do virtual visits during spring break? You can look at the schedules now and put things on your calendar and say, hey, we're going to do 2 college visits a day or 1 per day every day. An information session, do some virtual tours, and learn about 5 different colleges throughout the week. Okay, SAT subject exams. So there's one I didn't strike right there in June, but your sophomore year going into junior year, so you're a rising junior. Do you do an ACT or SAT exam? My bad for not putting the SAT subject exams, crossing that out there too. You don't have to worry about that, but you take an exam going into junior year to get a baseline score, to get a practice under game time conditions. Do you do something like that? Do you do any visits? Do you do it based around family vacations, right? Or is your family vacation based around a college? If you want to go visit Baylor University or TCU, so we're going to go on vacation in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for a week and see what's down there. Junior year, you're in fall of junior year. Do you refine your college list a little bit more if you have a test score at that point? I know, like I said, attend a college fair in person. I know, like, District 211, which is up around me in the Palatine area, so it might be a little far for you guys to go to. But that's always a place that has it. I know the College of Lake County always has one around those too. So they're out there for in-person too. You can find those. But there are a lot of virtual college fairs going on right now, to be honest with you, as well too. So, but if you didn't take an ACT, SAT, no problem, right? Not pushing you to, right? You don't need to be that pressure to stress, but maybe late fall, early winter, like I said, maybe February of junior year might be a great time to take it, because that's the next exam. Then it's going to be April exam, with the one you get for free. So you pay for one, you get one for free, and then you have 2 scores right there to figure out what you want to do and what's your strategy going forward. So that might be a good idea. President's Day, spring break, usually have a lot of open houses. This year being a little different, but maybe going forward next year there might be a lot of visits going on for younger students. In June, you retake the ACT or SAT. Like I said, subject exam, I should have crossed that out there. Again, do you do your summer visits at that point too? More college visits, more tours, because you might be really narrowing that list down to that point. And then you begin your applications. You're really going into senior year. You're a rising senior. You go in and you create your foundation. You start your applications, your Common App, your Coalition application. You start going into to start your essays, for instance. So once senior year starts, you're not feeling overwhelmed that you're behind. You've done a good base amount of things, and then you may have some questions for your counselor when you go back to school, for some teachers when you go back to school, and you just kind of need to finish up some essays. And 2 weeks, you're not going to get it all done in summer. Right? People always say, oh, I'm going to finish my application before the end of summer. It just doesn't happen. And sometimes there are things you just can't do anyway. But if you get a good amount, you can get a good amount done in the summer and not feel stressed, or you can add schools, for instance, as you go. Throwing it out there here too, in fall senior years, as I added this title. So slide, so you apply to colleges, are really the first deadline for some schools are October 15th, like UNC Chapel Hill. And some other schools, Georgia Tech had that when they changed it. But usually more to southeast schools. Some of them have them, but really November 1st is, thinking in the back of your mind, refer to big college deadline. So if you're thinking in the back of your mind when your son or daughter should have applications due by, think November 1st. Everything could change depending on what schools they want, but usually November 1st is a good deadline. And about every 15 days would be deadlines after. So about February 1st-ish, right? And it's kind of one of the last one. Other schools can keep going, they have rolling deadlines. But if you think about when it should end, that's just a good idea when it should end. And I should put on there too as well, start your FAFSA during that time, your financial aid, even when it's going to change for a sophomore, right? You're still going to be October 1st starting date. Students will get accepted anywhere between mid-December, but it's been pushed back with test optional, more applications out there. So that won't be until, mid-December to probably sometime in January, all the way to April 1st. But even some schools have already said April 1st used to be the date because, it's going to go into April now. I'm sorry, it's going to be up to April 7th or April 10th now. They're already delaying it because they know the amount of applications. They just can't get through them. And financial aid awards, if you've been accepted already, will come in through February through March at that point. If not, once you get your acceptances, you probably will get your financial aid award at that point too. So anywhere between mid-February and maybe now mid-April at that point or two. Great. So thanks for sticking around. Great for some good questions, but I'll try to end this a little bit over an hour for the program. Just remember, I think hopefully I try to get understand that college is a process. Have conversations. Have those tough conversations early so you save tears later about finances too. There's nothing wrong but talking about the finances with your son or daughter. You love them a lot, right? I love my kids. You want to give them the best, but sometimes you want to retire too, and there's nothing wrong with saying, I need to retire. I'm not necessarily going to work 5 more years to go to. There are other schools out there we can pay for. There are other options available. Let's find those different options, right? And let everybody get involved in the process then too. So if everybody stays on the same page and constantly having conversations, you're going to find maybe the best value for you too, right? It might not be the cheapest, but what's going to be best for your family and what everybody decided we're looking for in the process. Build your foundations, like I said, your coalition, your common application. Students can actually start creating those right now. So for Susan, for her son, who's a junior, he's going to be using at least one of those 2 applications. So he can create this over spring break. He can do something on these. Start entering in some of the boring information, the personal information, family information, school information. He can put his first 5 semester grades up on there already. So there are things he can do already to build his foundation and make things less stressful. And he can do this. And then if he has questions, he can always go back to the school counselor instead of doing this on October 31st and making Halloween a much scarier day than it really is too. So build those foundations. You can do those things earlier. On an application that, let's say the common application has over 900 different colleges on there, so chances are your son or daughter is going to apply to one of those schools or a couple of those schools. Coalition has 151 schools, so again, chances are your son or daughter is going to apply to a school might be on there, including University of Illinois. So it might be worth just to look into what I'm talking about there too and start building a foundation and start going forward there. Keep in mind, I think this was, I like to think I stressed this enough that reach schools will cost you. So the idea of looking for the cost factor that, again, if you are in the bottom 25% of the median ACT score, even if they accept you, your financial aid may not be the best for that school because in the end, their aid to you is almost being accepting you into a school that might be a little difficult for you academically, so they may not have that biggest incentive. And if you do not accept their offer of enrollment, right, that's okay. They were lower scored anyways. Or if you do accept them, like, fantastic, they're paying more money, and that's why we don't mind accepting them because they're going to pay more money and they're going to help our budgets, and we can give more money to somebody else, right? You shift the money from you guys to somebody else. So keep in mind, too, those reach schools may actually cost you, meaning they may not come in with a good financial aid offer for you because in the end, there's not a big incentive for them to do that. Which on the flip side, if you apply to the school when you're in the top, you're above the median 50%, right? The top 25%. That's when you can get more money for financial aid there for the school. All right, and the last one I'd say, in the end of all of this, and you do your thorough college search, do not worry about that name brand for the college, right? Don't worry about, is that a good school? Is that a good school? Has anybody heard about that school? Right, a lot of times we heard about the schools because the NCAA tournament's coming on, and you know what? There's a D3 NCAA tournament, but it's not on CBS and TNT and TBS, and Charles Barkley's not going to say that team's terrible, right? they're not commenting on those schools, but they're having their own tournament, but you just don't realize that, right? So it doesn't have that national publicity, and that's why we think about those name brand schools as good schools, because we've just heard about them. So don't worry about that. Do what's best for your family, and let other people hear about schools that your son or daughter is going to go to, because you're going to say, you know, you really should consider that school. It's a great school, and here's why, and here's how much it's costing me. So I think you may want to look at that school too. So be a trendsetter as well too. Okay, so I talked a lot. Thank you so much for staying on for here today on the Google Meet, or if you are watching this on demand, thank you so much for that. Again, there's my email address. If you want to copy this presentation, feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to do that. Or if you have any follow-up questions and you watch this on demand as well, feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer your question for you as well. So thanks so much for your time. I think I stopped sharing here too, so I'm going to jump back up here. And great. So if you have some questions, feel free to ask. Thank you so much. Or Susan has some questions, of course, too. She's in this thick of this as well.
Let's see. Well, I wanted to just let people who are viewing know that we have an evaluation to help us improve our programs. If you could please click on or copy and paste that link and fill out the few questions, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about sharing this with my son and daughter and what we'll be talking about. That's a lot of information. That's a good one. Yeah. I don't have any questions. I have to like probably review the slides. And sure. So I will email you to get those slides, right?
Perfect. Yeah, please do. Please do. I think that's a good way of putting it too. Like I said, just maybe sit back and think about them or look at the slides again. And I threw a lot at you for the first time and thinking, okay, what did Tom talk about? Probably really fast, but what was he talking about too? Let me figure this out here. And then you said you make your own game plan. So I think keep that one in mind too. Make your own game plan and stick and adjust with it too. But don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Do what's best for your family, and it's not easy, but try to block out that noise from everybody else and what they say. Here's what you should do, right? Do what's best for your family. Do what's best for your family. And I think maybe COVID has taught us that too, right? Do what's best for your family and not worry what everybody else tells you.
Yeah, I hear that. It doesn't look like there's any questions popping up. I think the questions were asked as we went along. Thanks for answering them as we went. I don't know. Thank you so much, Tom. I'm sure we haven't seen the last of you here at the library.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, just get in contact with anybody. I'm happy to help any way I can.